CWPA Remote.
Max Schlegel, thank you very much for joining me today. It took me a couple tries to get your name, but finally got it. Thank you very much. Head coach from Johns Hopkins, thank you for being with me today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
So first, you are an Annapolis native, went on to play at Loyola Marymount University on the West Coast. So talk a little bit about your playing experience before becoming a coach.
Yeah, so grew up in Annapolis. My older brother played water polo for Navy Club, and I watched him play for a couple years, and I was like, you know what, that looks fun. Started playing and loved it from minute one. Ended up playing under a great coach like Mike Schofield, who set me up for success. Played on the developmental and cadet national teams, traveled to Serbia, Montenegro, Mexico, Canada, playing with the national team, having a blast and getting that experience. And that set me up and got me exposure to be seen by colleges, and went to LMU on a visit and absolutely loved it and chose there. It was a great time to be at LMU. I think we had won by the time I had left, we won 4 consecutive conference championships, and I think 8 out of the last 10. I don't think we've won since, my class has been there and the classes before me. So I'm hoping this year, that they get enough good players and they're back on top again. But yeah, it was a great experience. I got to play with amazing players there, and under Coach John, and had a great time in California. But I knew water polo, needs to grow in other states in California, so I was happy to come back and start coaching. So, yeah.
And you served as an assistant coach under Ted Bresnahan. You took over the team in the fall of 2018 and were promoted to head coach in February of 2019. So you're now entering your second official season as head coach at Johns Hopkins in 2020. So talk about taking over the JHU program and how you transition from the assistant role to the head coach role.
Absolutely. So I think it was made easier that, Ted had been there for 30 years. He set the culture. I got to see, how he did things firsthand, assisting him. And then once he, was retiring, we had phone calls probably every week, if not twice a week. And I think that really helps, having that mentor that's so invested in the program and, wanted to see it succeed, see myself succeed, and help guiding me that way. And I had already been head coach for a couple years at a high school. I know it's a total different level, but it's still, being in charge, knowing how to, take the team and be successful, train the kids. And I think that gave me great experience as well. And I think the guys, the juniors and seniors who I'd been working with as assistant trusted me, knew my skills, and, were able and willing and wanting to follow my lead. And I think that helped tremendously with that transition. I think, it could have been a little bit harder proving myself if I had become a head coach at, a different school with brand new players, and you have to prove yourself, where, putting in that time as an assistant at Hopkins, I think really, created a value of trust in the guys. And I think with the last season we had some ups and downs, but overall we accomplished great things. And I think that further puts trust in players coming in as freshmen and the ones returning. So.
And you're coaching at a highly academic and selective school. So you're battling the likes of Brown, Harvard, Princeton, Stanford, among others, for athletes on the recruiting trail. So give me your pitch for what makes Johns Hopkins such a special place, both as a school, but also as a place for an athlete to compete on a D3 level.
Absolutely. And it is very difficult competing with all those teams, and especially most of those teams you already said are D1, and they can hand guys scholarships, which, as Division III, we can't do. So it is very difficult. But I think it's a double-edged sword as far as that. because we are Division III. We have less practice times in the spring, less practice times in the summer. And my pitch is, if you want to go to the best place for the biggest and greatest balance of being an actual student athlete, that Johns Hopkins should be your number one choice. Even over the Ivy Leagues, I just feel that way personally, that, you know, when you come to Hopkins, it's school first. I make a lot of leeway when that happens. You know, school is always going to first. I don't put any restrictions on what major you take or anything like that. If you want to go study abroad in the spring, you can study in the abroad. Internships in the summertime, you can go there. I know for me at LMU, I was on campus practicing 11 months out of the year, and it was a lot of restrictions on what we can do. And I chose that because, you know, I wanted to be on that high level. But with Hopkins, we just competed for a national championship for Division III. So that's why it's the best balance. You can do all those things. Some guys are in fraternities, some guys are in engineering clubs. They get to do the travel abroad internships, but we're still playing all Division I teams in our conference, and we're still competing for an Eastern title every year, which we won last year. And then we went on and played for the national championship for the first time ever, and I expect to be back there next year and every year in the future. So that's why I just think it's the best balance in the country for being a true student athlete.
And now you just mentioned a little bit the success you guys have had. Now, just what advice do you wish that you knew from all the success and just what you've went through so far? What do you wish that you knew when you first started coaching that you know now?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is, you know, being able to rely on people other than yourself. You know, I think that having a good assistant coach is just absolutely important. And I had John Wilson this past year, who's a goalie, helping train a kid who had never played water polo before, and that was tremendous. And then the admissions and everything, like, you can't take all the pressures of everything. And, you know, I have a sports administrator in Rick Roman that has done wonders for me. And to be open and, you know, rely on those people around the sport and not just yourself as a coach and internalize everything and stress out about it. You know, just creating that group of trust and talking things out can be a world of difference. So I think that's the biggest thing, is try not to hold everything on yourself.
And just touching back on the success that you've had, you won the CWPA Division III championship last year, finished fourth at the inaugural USA Water Polo Division III championship. It is tough to stay on top of the mountain. So how do you handle the pressure of being among the top teams on the East Coast in Division III ranks and consistently in competition with schools in the SCIAC conference for the title of the best men's team in Division III?
Yeah, so obviously what I just said of, like, you know, creating that support group. Then the other thing is, I've been putting that pressure on myself to be successful my whole life. You know, when you're trying the national team, that's just as much pressure. When, you know, I'm at NCAAs playing in a Final Four, that's just as much pressure. So I think I've had, you know, my whole career as a player and as a coach, you know, I've won 2 championships as a high school, you know, coach, and then won Division III championship as an assistant with Ted. So, I mean, there's pressure to succeed in everything that I strive for. So to me, it's not any bigger difference to me. It's like, I want to be successful. I want my kids to be successful on the team, and I want to win. And I think handling that pressure is just normal at this point of you're trying to be the best. There's pressure, and you just have to deal with it. And then also, you know, again, having that great support group and having outlets, having hobbies helps a lot for sure. You know, you lose a game, you can't, you know, sit down and be like, oh, this is terrible. You know, look at the film, see what you guys can do different, see how you can improve, but then do something fun, do something you love to do that has no pressure. And I think that really helps too.
And now, Max, before I let you go, I've been asking all the coaches this. during this quarantine, what is something or a couple things that student athletes can be doing for both, mentally, physically? What can they be doing to try to stay sharp?
Yeah, so I mean, something that physically that I'm doing that's definitely different. I've been in the water my whole life. I've hated running, but I've started running and doing that 2-3 times a week. And I think it's just keeping me healthy and active. And I think that's, very minimal. Just go out and run and exercise any way you can. Mentally, any hobby. I grew up playing video games. I'm part of that generation. I'm still playing those video games. And then as far as like contacting coaches, just contact as many as you feel you fit for that school. And don't be afraid to reach out. I mean, the worst that can happen is it takes a couple weeks for a coach to reply to you and say, oh, this is what I'm looking for. But you may hit it and you're a perfect candidate for them and they haven't seen you play. Send them game film. I know some coaches like highlight film, some coaches like full games. I'll accept anything. Hopkins is a very hard school to get into, and some guys reach out to me and they're not meeting the academic standards, and I have to let them know, but other guys meet it, and we can move forward. So reach out to coaches, stay fit, and have a hobby that you like to do, and do it.
Yeah. Well, Max, thank you very much for joining me today. Max Schlegel from Johns Hopkins University. Got the name.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Max.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for having me. This was fun. Appreciate it.